And we're live. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. This is going to be a very short Jeranism pre-show, Globebusters pre-show. So thank you guys for joining us. The reason we do this, as always, is to get a little bigger audience, if we can, over at the Globebusters show. And so in about 15 minutes, we're going to transfer over there. And I do have John the Moore guy with me. John, you there?
I'm here. How's it going?
Beautiful. I'm doing good. Thanks for joining me. And we should have Iru. We're supposed to have Iru. So that is the plan. We'll see what happens if he comes on board around noon Pacific, or if not. And we do not have Bob. For people who don't know, I've spent most of yesterday, about 4 hours, 3 hours or 4 hours, doing the FE Core Force the Level live stream, doing that for members of FE Core. So Bob is currently doing that experiment or test, whatever you want to call it, observation. Pretty good. It was pretty good yesterday, seeing Chris Van Maitre, who's doing the actual observation. He's got his level out there. They're basically doing, just short stretches, and then they're trying to cover an entire 2 miles, and then they're going to compile all that data and see basically if we've got two parallel rods at the beginning of 2 miles and at the end of 2 miles. So that's the plan that they're doing there. So hopefully we might have Bob live to show us a little bit of that. If he pops on Skype at all, we'll switch over there and show his video. So this is the pre-show. Called it Force the Level and Other Forces. The reason I did that, John, I don't know if you saw my live stream this week with Anthony Riley. Did you get a chance to see that? With
I
Sleeping
did
Warrior?
not.
So I'd be interested on your take, but we don't have to do it today because basically what happened, and everybody's all up in arms about this, which is just crazy to me, is Bob and I right now have just a disagreement. We just believe different things as far as gravity. I still am not convinced that there's a downward force. I believe that relative density explains it all. Bob did a show, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago at this point on Globebusters, saying that because there is an acceleration, there has to be a force. I then did a show with Sleeping Warrior this week, and man, the comments are ridiculous. I've deleted so many of them because people are like, you and Bob can't even agree on gravity. What a joke. You guys can't even agree. And it baffles me because it really is inconsequential. It's like if you and I, John, were having a back and forth battle over who's more attractive, Jessica Alba or Jessica Biel. And we could go, and by the way, it's Jessica Alba by far, but we could go back and forth on that, but it just doesn't matter. And when people are arguing a point, as long as they're honest, I don't see the problem. Both people are being honest with their opinions. I haven't been swayed in the direction that there's a force yet. Obviously, Bob and many others in the flat earth community have not been swayed that relative density explains it all. So we did that video, and it's just caused more problems than I can even mention. One of the things that I got today was a message from somebody on Skype, and I won't say their name just because I'm being nice, and they didn't tell me I could. But what basically they said here, and they're going on and on about I'm being wrong, I'm so wrong, and then they say at one point, Jaron, can I at least have a call with you about this? The issue is so important that I believe it will be the downfall, or at least something that greatly slows down flat Earth. I'm like, what? because Jaron doesn't agree with your opinion of something, that it's going to be the downfall of flat Earth. Like, it's just like, get over it. As long as people are being honest, I have no problem with that. When I have a problem is when we have like Brian Cox saying no person in the history of the world has ever thought that the Earth was flat. That's a problem because that's an outright lie. It's just nonsense. If you have to tell a lie to get your point across, then there's a big problem. I mean, people should see the difference real quickly between those two. When you have to tell a lie to get your point across, and it happens all the time with Globe Earth. We heard that it'd be the same as me saying to you, John, your idea that Jessica Biel is more attractive is ridiculous because no person in the history of the world has ever thought that Jessica Biel was hotter. It's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It's just ridiculous. And if we argued Coke or Pepsi, I talked about that before. That the Stephen Hawking genius experiment, right? They told us all, these are just ordinary people who are going to be telling you where you live. But then you find out you got a teacher, you've got a scientist that works for Goddard, and you've got another scientist who's even on tape a year later on that Genius show saying, I'm not a scientist. But yet you can go back a year before that and find that Kat Bobineau actually said that she is a scientist. So when people are telling you lies to get their point through, when people have to lie to you about the globe Earth, that's the problem. So just because I say I don't agree, and I argued the point before about Coke or Pepsi, literally that's the equivalent of saying we're going to have a Coke versus Pepsi test or to see which one tastes better, and we're going to use ordinary people to test it. And by the way, all those ordinary people work for Coke. Well, it's not it's a ridiculous idea.
I still think that Coke and Pepsi are secretly owned by the same stockholders, and it's all big false dichotomy to drum up sales.
Absolutely, yeah. Why not? Yeah, it's the same thing when people say that there is no conspiracies. There's never been a conspiracy. It's like so ridiculous. Where everything is a conspiracy. All of it. So, the whole world, when they say, everything's a conspiracy. No, pretty much everything is. Everything that you can imagine. You have two gas stations across the street from each other, charging, 2 or 3 cents more than each other. And you look at it and say, oh, okay, I've got an option here. I've got a choice. But they've gotten together. They've decided, you be 3 cents higher this time. I'll be 3 cents higher next time. And they go back and forth. So everything is a conspiracy to get more money out of you, to get your buy-in, to get your belief. And so, yeah, it's okay that Bob and I disagree, and people can't seem to grasp that. And for me, relative density explains it all. I don't need a downward force. When I even hear the word force, I think magic, that we have to have magic, and people are locked into this idea of you have to have this force equals ma. You have to have F equals ma. I don't think that necessarily needs to be true. It's just a conception of man. So. Anyway, what I want to talk about on the Globebusters show, which is going to be...
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I don't think it's necessarily a force, but there must be some sort of a tendency for higher density objects or whatever to find their way down. And that's it. I mean, I don't know if you'd call that a force or an acceleration, whatever you want to call it, but there is a tendency for higher density objects or gases to find their way down. And then naturally, lower density objects or gases will find their way above that. Now, what causes that tendency? Who knows? I think that electromagnetism is probably the way to go, but certainly not gravity.
Right.
Although that's, force.
Yeah, that's kind of Bob's position and kind of David Weiss's position and a lot of people's position. I simply look at things and say, well, relative density, in my opinion, can explain it, because if you've got a golf ball in air, it has to go in some direction because there's disequilibrium there. So whatever direction it goes would be what we as humans would call down, because if it went to the side, well, then so would all the land, so would our feet, so would everything. And so that would be what we'd be calling down, and people would have the same argument then. They would say, well, why is there a preference for it to go down? Well, it has to go in some direction. There's a disequilibrium. So that's the way I see it. And again, we can all disagree on this, or at least I can disagree. I'm okay with that. It's okay for me not to simply buy into what others believe until I'm convinced with evidence, and I haven't been convinced yet. So that's obviously a problem for some people. Today's Globebusters show will be called Apollo 11 and Other Fantasies. That we're going to be going through some of that moon stuff. The reason that's on my mind, several reasons, and we'll talk about that on Globebusters, but one of those reasons is that there's a new documentary out called Apollo 11. I just rented it, I think, on Thursday. You can go to Redbox and get it for, whatever, $1.79 or whatever they charge. And it's a new 2-hour and 20-minute documentary. A lot of it is very beautiful. The beginning of it, they show some magnificent footage, and I'm going to show it on Globebusters a little bit. I'm not going to show the video, but I'll show some images. Or at least some still shots, and we can look at that. And then when it gets to everything that happens in space, you just get nothing but CGI and models basically existing in a black warehouse. And so we'll talk about that. That's why I called it Apollo 11. The other reason I did that is on Wednesday I did a interview with Mel Fabregas on Veritas Radio. I don't believe that will be out for a little while, but it was a great show. 2 hours of Mel and I talking about the moon, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today on Globebusters. And the show might be a little bit short, might be about 2 hours today, because I do need to host the Force the Level live stream for FE Core members. So I'll be doing that later and checking in with them and seeing how everything's going as it gets too late for Mike Cavanaugh and the people over in the East to host that as it passes midnight for them. I'm going to take over the stream for them. And it's fun. We just have a bunch of us there that are just talking, and we get live stream footage from the experiment. They usually have 2 or 3 cameras going, so we can kind of follow along with what they're doing. They did great yesterday. I think they almost got done with the first mile, but I think they've kind of figured out exactly how they're doing it, so they should be moving swiftly today. And the plan is to have Bob hopefully tune in live so that we can see that. David Weiss just texted me to say that he will be battling me on this on this relative density issue on Monday, so you can join us on Monday Night Raw if you want. That will be, let me transfer this over there. That's Mondays from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific. He's also on the same side as Bob, but I ask everybody to watch the presentation that Sleeping Warrior gave on Thursday, I believe it was, that we did it on my channel. And make up your own mind. Again, I don't need people to believe me. That's the thing. I don't even care if anybody believes me. I don't need one other person to believe me. I've always been like that for the entire 4 years I've had my channel. I certainly don't just back down to societal pressure or people saying, well, you're wrong, you must be wrong. If that was the case, I'd be a Globe believer. So anyway, that's the pre-show for today, guys. The link is in the description. If you scroll down, click the first link there, and you will head over to the Globebusters live show. And we're going to be starting that in about 2 minutes or so. I have to switch accounts here on YouTube and get over there real quickly and get that show started. So we'll see you on the other side.
Hello.
Is that Iru?
Yeah, hello, I'm back.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, I was like 5 minutes totally mute, but
Oh, that's good. We're glad you're here.
I see we're on
Hey,
the
Eru.
channel, so hello, Sean. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, we're going to switch channels, but I'm going to keep the call open, so don't worry about that. We're just going to end this live stream, and we'll see everybody over on Globebusters. So see you in a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Globebusters pre-show. Till 2 minutes from now, peace.